Hello there, Ben Bowers, the Spirit Specialist, and I am here today to talk to you about Daftmill 2010 summer batch release. Very small distillery, very much kind of like small scale craft distillery. If they were in America, they'd probably call themselves. Essentially a working farm that doesn't produce very many bottles, and as a result it's incredibly popular. Now you'll notice that this bottle does not have much left in it. I got one bottle of this, and I could have sold it to one person, and they could have drunk it and enjoyed it, or they might have even flipped it. I probably would have sold it to somebody that I actually trust not to do that. But because I just had the one bottle, and there are lots of people out there that are wanting to try this, what I've done is I've taken the bottle and I've decanted it into a number of smaller bottles that then go into this. Something called New Kids on the Lock, which is it was the name of a tasting that I did last year that was new Scotch distilleries, or new releases from Scotch distilleries that were new or very young, which included the Daftmill from last year. And I really liked the name. I was quite chuffed with it. So, and it took me like a good 10 minutes to actually do the logo from the New Kids on the Block logo that they used to use back in the 80s. So what I'm doing is I'm putting this together as a pack of new releases that have come out in the last few months. That's why it's the Spring 2022 edition. I know it's New Kids on the Lock, but I've put Wireworks first release in here. But in this, we have the new Lockley Sewing edition, which you have just seen a video for, because I've just done that recently. We've got the Daftmill. We've got a 1972 blended grain from J.G. Thompson, which is a new brand that launched last year, back end of last year, just before Christmas. We've got the Wireworks first release. We've got Ben Romack Cara Gold, which is another new release from that distillery. And then we've also got the Spain Malt Macallan 2002 single cask strength 19-year-old. Again, because I had one bottle of that, and incredibly popular, and I'd rather 20 odd people get to try it than just one person. So that is in this box, which is why I don't have a lot of Daftmill left. But before I tell you what it tastes like, because the video bits that I'm doing of trying this and the background information is also going to go in one big video to cover everything in that box. So at the time of recording, I have a couple of boxes left because I've not officially launched it yet, but I've already got people that are wanting it. So if you're watching this and you're interested in the box, go on the website and see if there's any left, because there might be. There's not many of them, and there's not many still left at the time of recording this, but there might be. So go onto the website, www.spiritspecialist.com, and have a look. The pack costs you 50 quid, but you also get a £5 voucher for a future purchase in the shop. But before I tell you what this tastes like, let me give you that background information about the Daftmill distillery. One of the smallest distilleries in Scotland, Daftmill was founded by brothers Francis and Ian Cuthbert in their family farm based near Cupar, 20 miles southeast of Perth. From an initial idea to make whisky from their own barley in 2003, a distilling licence was granted on St Andrew's Day in 2005, and distilling commenced on the 16th of December that year. The work needed to convert old farm buildings into a distillery, with the exception of the stills that was produced in Rothes, was completed by local people living within a 5-mile radius. All barley used for distillation is grown on the farm, which continues to grow potatoes, carrots, broccoli, and they also rear cattle. Distilling takes place on a seasonal basis around gaps in the farming calendar, such as during winter and the summer months of June and July. Only 20,000 litres of spirit is produced each year by Francis in the main, due to the tiny size of the operation. The inaugural bottling was released in 2018 as a 2005 vintage 12-year-old, and bottling and distribution is done through Berry Brothers and Rudd. The 2010 summer batch release is a limited release of 6,250 bottles, filled in late 2021 from 25 first fill bourbon barrels, and it's the last time the Optic barley variety was used during distillation. No colour is added and no chill filtration took place, and it was bottled at 46% ABV. Right then, so I featured the Daftmill, I'm sure it was the 2009 bottling, in the New Kids on the Lock tasting that we did last year, and it went down really, really well. Now, retail price, you are looking at about, it should have been about 90 quid, but when it first came out, which was 3-4 weeks ago, I believe, it just, like auction houses, 200 quid, 250 quid, it seems to have settled back down. But even during the tasting, you know, you're looking at about £100 for the release when it comes out. But because of the demand, it tends to put the prices up. And there were some places selling it at £150 straight away. 10-year-old, 11-year-old. So we're looking at 11-year-old here. I'm assuming it was bottled after June, July of 2021, last year. So I'm guessing that this is an 11-year-old. It starts to create a bit of a discussion in terms of, you know, is it worth the money? Why? Is it the demand that's doing it, or is it simply because there is just so little of this stock available? You know, it's a working farm. There is not that much stock available, and it comes out in very, very small parcels. So it's that kind of demand versus supply, price, value, what the rest of the market's doing, age, price, all of this sort of stuff. Now, the general consensus during the tasting was it was a fantastic whiskey, and here's the hope that this one is as well. Francis very much seems to be the figurehead, and what I love about when I've been doing my research on Daftmill, the branding, you know, it's functional but understated, factual, tells you exactly what's going on, gives you all the information on the back label that you might want. So I love the fact that it's just, look, here it is, there you go, do you want it or not? We've done what we can, we've done to the best of our abilities, nothing flashy, nothing particularly fancy, doesn't even come in a box, you know, all of that lot. It's functional. It's very kind of like, we're a working farm, we're making whiskey, here is the whiskey, bugger off, I've got other things to do, I've got cattle to rear and things to grow and harvest and all this lot. So I really kind of like the feeling that it kind of gives doing all the research on it. In terms of the whiskey itself though, a lovely vanilla cream, touch of citrus going on there. It's nice and warming. There's a warming feel of kind of like sunshine and fields. It's kind of, you know, there's a little bit of the, so Lockley had it as well. Lockley had this kind of feel of farm and fields and hay and straw and planting, and it's very much kind of like a out in the countryside, out in the air, but not that really stinky kind of like we've just fertilized the fields they're doing it at the moment, and you kind of get it wafting on the air every now and again. It's one of the disadvantages of living in the country, is every now and again you'll step outside and go, oh God, you know, who's farted? No, you've not farted, you've absolutely followed through, it stinks outside. And it's none of that, it's that kind of everything growing, and it's warm, and it's the sun, and it was kind of summer evenings and everything like that. And this really does have it. It's got a lovely warm, slightly citrusy, fresh, there's a kind of greenery feel to it, but it's, you know, kind of growing grass and again straw and hay and wheat. Oh, I love that nose. It's so inviting, but fresh. And that absolutely carries on through the palate. A really nice biscuity lemon zest. Very much kind of like lemon zest with one of those zesters where you get the little kind of sprinkles of zest coming off. And then that's been sprinkled in almost like a lemon shortbread that's got some lovely softly whipped vanilla cream kind of sat on top of it. There's a little bit of not just citrus, but there's also a bit of like red berry fruit, but really bright red berries, kind of like raspberry on there. You know, there's a feel almost of kind of eaten mess of, you know, cream and raspberries and a little touch of meringue, but actually some lemon zest has been kind of mixed in with that eaten mess feel, and I bloody love eaten mess as well. It's really refreshing. But there's a lovely silkiness that runs through it as well. And the finish is actually, considering how light and delicate this whiskey is, the finish really lingers. It really sits, and you get that creaminess continues. The higher notes of the citrus kind of die down a bit, but you do get a lovely warmth. Really, really impressive. It's so easy to drink, and I really feel like this would be a great whiskey for kind of, not necessarily over ice, but kind of like keeping the bottle in the fridge and just sitting outside in a garden on a summer's day after a long day's work and drinking. And to be honest, I would have absolutely no qualms about doing this in a scotch and soda. You know, good at getting a good measure of this, topping it up with soda, a nice large kind of, maybe a wheel of orange. I think you'd probably get away with it, but actually kind of like lemon and lime, to be honest. But as a long kind of whiskey and soda, I think this would be absolutely fantastic as a really, really refreshing cocktail. But just on its own, it's a really refreshing whiskey. It's what some people would call a breakfast whiskey. It's light, it's delicate, but it's got bags going on with it. Now, if you like sherry bombs, if you like peated whiskies, and you don't really want something that some people would probably go, and they're idiots, oh, it's a girly whiskey. No such thing as a girly whiskey, get over yourself. But this might be too light, too delicate for some people that want more depth, more oomph, that sort of thing. But just of its own accord, in a kind of like a lowland, not lowland as a whole, but like, you know, that generic stereotype of lowland whiskies are light and delicate and that sort of feel. That type of genre of, or that category of a whiskey flavour profile, this is well up there. Now, is it worth the price point that has been asked for? Considering how little of it's made, yes. If you compare it with other kind of lighter whiskies, and this really does remind me of Lockley. I think this is where Lockley can be. You know, in essence, it's a very similar kind of setup. It's a very similar process. They're growing their own barley. The sowing edition in particular has that lighter touch that this has without the Pedro Jimenez element. It just doesn't have that depth of the age. But absolutely, Lockley can be there. Now, does that mean that Lockley, when they hit their 10-year-old, are going to be charging 90 to 100 quid of it? I doubt it, but I have a feeling that they're going to be making a lot more than Francis is at Daftmill. So, again, demand, supply. It's kind of an impossible question to answer because we're all going to have our differing opinions as to what makes good value for money. Most important thing is what's in the bottle. And what's in the bottle is absolutely fantastic. I think this is brilliant. It's so Moorish, so easy to drink, but in such a good way. It's easy to drink with complexity, with depth, with a lot going on to it at the same time. And it's, you know, the 2009 that we did last year went down fantastically well, and that will go down fantastically well, I think, as well, if you can get a bottle of it, because there really isn't that much out there. So, great whiskey. I'm really glad that I can share that with more people than just selling that one bottle. So, as I said earlier, it's part of the pack, the New Kids on the Lock pack. So, if you do want to jump on the website and see if there are any left, because there were at the time of recording, but it's not been launched yet officially, it's just gone to the people on the mailing list, then go and have a look. www.spiritspecialist.com. I shall see you at the next video because that's me done. Cheers.